It's like, everyone wants to be on top of their money game, right? But then there's just like this constant flood of information, tips, and strategies. It's tough to figure out where to even begin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's information overload out there.
Totally. So that's why we're doing this deep dive today. We're going way back to uncover some seriously timeless wisdom, stuff that can really make a difference in how you handle your finances. We're talking about ancient wisdom, stuff from the Bible, and connecting it to those practical tips you find in like classic money books.
Exactly. You've got some great sources lined up, and we're on a mission here, right? To pull out the core insights, those golden nuggets of wisdom about building a solid financial life.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll be looking at texts like Proverbs, seeing how that ancient wisdom lines up with, say, the advice in George S. Clausen's The Richest Man in Babylon.
That's one.
We want to show you that these basic ideas, planning, working hard, not rushing into things, they're not just some random tips. They come from centuries of, human experience.
It's like a reassuring feeling,
Yeah.
In a world where everything's changing so fast, especially with money and investing and all that.
Right.
What if, like, the most important things for financial success are actually pretty simple? Things that have always been true. Okay, so let's dig in. Let's start with, like, the biblical foundation for financial planning. There's one verse that always stands out, Proverbs 21.5. It says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty."
That verse is incredibly relevant even today, especially with how we experience the financial world now. Everything's so fast-paced.
Right.
It's all about, this constant stream of news and instant trading platforms. And what that verse is telling us, I think, is to take a step back. It's saying that having a well-thought-out, long-term plan, one you've really researched, that's what protects you from those emotional decisions, the ones that often, eat away at your potential profits.
Interesting.
It's about intentionality over impulsivity. I love that way of putting it. It's almost like a weight off your shoulders.
Right.
Taking that time to plan, to be deliberate.
Right.
That's not being slow. It's actually the smarter way to go. Now, there's another verse, Proverbs 6.68, and it uses this really cool image, the ant. It says, "Go to the ant, O sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest."
That little ant, right? It's such a simple analogy, but it's so powerful. This tiny creature, no one's telling it what to do, but it's got incredible self-discipline. It's thinking ahead, preparing for when things might be tough, even when everything's plentiful.
Makes you think.
And if we connect that to, where you are right now, it's saying, hey, make the most of your current situation to build a safety net for the future, for things like retirement or those surprise expenses that pop up, or just for that overall feeling of security. And the key takeaway, I think, is that it's your responsibility. You've got to take that initiative.
You're in the driver's seat.
Exactly.
You can't just wait around for someone to hand you all the answers. You've got to, develop that drive to prepare.
That's it.
So when we put these two passages together, it seems like the message is clear. Working hard, being prepared, and really being careful not to make rash decisions with your money. That's crucial.
Exactly. And those aren't just like moral lessons floating around out there. They're presented as, fundamental principles for a good life. And part of that good life, financial health. So I'm curious, what really stands out to you about how these, ancient ideas could fit into your life today?
It makes me think about how easy it is to get caught up in the short term. We want things right now. There's that fear of missing out, especially with investments, like everyone's talking about the next big thing.
Right.
But these verses are like a reminder to stay focused on the long game. Okay, so we've got the biblical foundation. Now let's bring in George S. Clason. He wrote The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing how his ideas, even though they came much later, seem to echo that ancient wisdom.
It's true. They're remarkably similar. Klassen's book, it's a different style for sure, but it's like a practical guide to actually living out those foundational ideas.
It is.
He's all about living below your means, saving regularly, and investing wisely. And that aligns perfectly with the prudence and diligence we see in those biblical texts.
All right.
It's like these aren't just ideas for religious people, they're universal principles for building wealth and stability.
There's one thing that really connects for me. It's Klassen's advice to pay yourself first.
Hmm.
That idea of setting aside some of your earnings right away. And it links to the biblical idea of being responsible with what you have. Like in
Yeah.
Luke 16:10, it talks about being faithful with small amounts.
Absolutely. Both those sets of wisdom, they're all about taking ownership of your financial life. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter how much you make or what your financial history is. The message is that building a secure financial future starts with you. It starts with your actions, saving, and planning.
you're in control. Okay, so this is where it gets really practical.
Let's get down to it.
Our sources also address some questions that you might be thinking right now.
I bet.
Let's tackle them head on. Let's start with a big one. How do I start saving and investing wisely?
Well, based on what we've been looking at, the answer is pretty straightforward. Begin by setting aside at least 10% of what you earn, specifically for saving or investing. Right off the bat, that puts you in line with Clausen's core principle and with that idea from Proverbs 21.5, planning intentionally for your future.
Okay,
Then it gets into the how-to. Making a budget so you know where your money is going, tracking your spending so you can make smart choices, and really figuring out your long-term financial goals.
got it.
As for where to put your savings, the sources talk about low-risk investments, things like mutual funds. Think of those like a basket of different investments which can help spread out the risk. They also mention stocks, which means you're owning a tiny piece of a company or even real estate. But the most important thing here, do your homework. Research or find someone you trust, a financial advisor maybe, to help you navigate all those options.
That gives you some concrete steps, right? It's not just this vague idea of be responsible. It's
Exactly.
like, here's what you do. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, what if I don't have enough to invest right now?
Yeah.
Things are tight.
Yeah, that's a common concern. But here's the good news. Starting small is always encouraged. Our source even connects this to that biblical idea of being faithful with even small amounts,
Mm-hmm.
even tiny but consistent contributions. They can grow surprisingly large over time. It's the power of compounding.
Compounding, yeah.
It's like the returns you earn, they start earning returns too. It just keeps building like a snowball rolling downhill.
I like that visual.
The sources also recommend practical things, like looking at your spending habits. Where can you cut back, even a little bit, and then put that money towards savings and investments? The point is to find a starting point you can manage, even if it seems small at first.
It's so important, that encouragement to just start somewhere. It takes away that feeling that you need a huge chunk of money to even begin. Here's another question I think a lot of us struggle with. How do I stop myself from impulse spending? We've all been there. That tempting thing in the store.
Oh, tell me about it. The sources have a few tips for this. First, remember that budget we talked about. That acts as a framework, keeps you aware of where your money's going. Second, and this is key, before you buy something you don't absolutely need, ask yourself, do I really need this? Or is it just a fleeting want? That pause, that moment of reflection, it's like that self-control we see in Proverbs 25.28.
It's about resisting that urge.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Having a clear financial plan can really help you resist those impulse buys.
Love that. That moment of pause is so powerful. Okay, here's a big one. What do I do if there's a financial emergency? That can be really stressful.
Absolutely. But that's where being prepared really pays off. It goes back to Proverbs 6.6, okay, the wisdom of that ant. Storing up resources in advance for those unexpected situations. The advice is to create an emergency fund, enough to cover maybe 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses. Think of it as your safety net, so if you lose your job, face a big medical bill, or something unexpected happens, you're not completely thrown off course. You don't have to go into debt to cover it.
It's like creating your own financial winter reserves while things are good.
Precisely.
Okay, last question, and this is probably on everyone's mind. How do I make smart investment choices?
The sources recommend a really thoughtful step-by-step approach. First, you don't have to figure it all out alone. Find someone you trust, someone knowledgeable, and get advice. Second, diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across different types of assets. That helps lower the overall risk. And maybe most importantly, take the time to learn about different investment options. Klassen's principles suggest starting with those safer, more stable investments that you understand. Then, as you build your knowledge and your financial base becomes stronger, you can gradually explore those higher risk options. It's all about learning as you go.
A marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
And constantly learning and getting good guidance along the way.
Hmm.
Okay, we've covered so much. Let's break down those key takeaways and see how they apply to your financial life, like right now. First up, disciplined savings. This is something that really ties back to that idea of planning in Proverbs.
For sure. It's about making saving a non negotiable habit. Set aside a chunk of your income as soon as you get it, before you spend anything else. And remember what we talked about, the power of compound interest. Even small amounts, over time, they can grow into significant wealth.
And that leads us right into investing for the future. It's like the ant isn't just saving for a rainy day.
Right.
It's thinking long term.
Yeah.
In today's world, that means investing in things like retirement accounts, stocks, real estate. You're building that financial security for the long haul.
Absolutely. Looking beyond your immediate needs and creating a strong foundation for your future financial well being. And then there's that crucial point about avoiding debt and not overspending. Remember that saying, haste leads to poverty?
Ooh, that one hits home.
It's a serious warning against living beyond your means, getting stuck in those high interest debt cycles, and making those impulsive financial decisions. If you live within your means or even below, you've got so much more control. You're actually creating space to build wealth.
Taking back control.
That's it. And this is where a budget comes in. It's that practical tool, that roadmap.
Yeah,
Our sources link it directly to that biblical idea of wise planning.
smart budgeting.
And a budget, it doesn't have to be restrictive. It's about directing your money towards what's important to you. It keeps you on track to reach your financial goals.
Love it. This has been a fantastic deep dive. I'm really glad our sources also touch on the idea of generosity. It's not just about hoarding wealth for ourselves, right?
Definitely not. Proverbs 11.25 says, "Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered." This adds another dimension to financial well-being. It's suggesting that generosity can actually create a sense of, emotional and even spiritual richness. It's about gratitude and connection.
So if we're looking at the big picture, it seems like these principles, from both the Bible and classic literature, they offer a really solid framework for making smart money decisions today. It all comes down to those core ideas. Plan carefully, work hard, and don't rush into things.
Exactly. These aren't just outdated relics of the past. They're fundamental truths. They're still incredibly relevant for building a secure and fulfilling financial life.
So to our listener, think about which of these principles really speaks to you right now, where you are in your financial journey. And maybe, just maybe, try one small step this week to put it into action. Because real financial wisdom, it's not just about how much money you have. It's about the intention you bring to managing those resources and even the generosity you express. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.